Welcome back to the Crypto Rain channel. Excited to be with you today. Today we have special guest Paul from Dfinity, who's our technical analysis expert. He would call himself a reader of pricing in the charts. That is what he's great at. If you think about it, that's very specific in the broader aspect of it. Some people would refer to that as technical analysis. And he's being more specific, and we love to bring him on because I'm a fundamental analyst. However, my view misses some things, and so what I love to have is some balance provided to you, because the goal of this channel is to create the most informed audience in all of crypto. And so I'm not just bringing somebody that's average at what they're doing. Paul has been doing this for 30 years, and he's exceptional, and he's trusted by some very important people for his analysis. So we love to have him on, and if you've seen him before, you know he just shoots it straight to you, and that's so refreshing. You can just hear it in his voice and his credibility. So let's go ahead and bring Paul on. Paul, thanks for joining us.
How are you doing?
Fantastic.
So we've got a very interesting market at the moment, haven't we? And yeah, so much going on. It's just incredible. So I think we probably should just dive right into it. Thanks to everyone in the community for your suggestions. I think there's been quite a few this week, so we'll try to get as many as we can done. I'm sure we'll get to the end and get to all of them, but there are quite a few. And also I should say that I know this from other channels. Sometimes people post things, they accidentally get missed, and then we don't talk about them. Please don't think that we're just ignoring anything. That's never done on purpose. It's just sometimes the sheer volume of comments, we're bound to miss one or two. So if you've asked for something and we haven't talked about it and you're like, oh, why didn't they do it? Just put it there in the comments again and we'll check it out.
Yes, perfect.
Okay.
All right.
So I'm going to. Shall we start off with the majors and then go into the obviously the viewer picks and the other coins? So, right. So what I've got here is this is my. These are all the markets that I look at. So I'm looking at not just cryptocurrencies. I'm looking at everything from bonds and gold and silver and things like that. I'm looking at so many different things because I want to see if there's anything that is going to be competing with crypto, anything that gives us a heads up that the markets are going to change direction. So, for example, this is a chart of copper, and then we've got aluminium that's seen this big retracement. So I'm always on the lookout for a change in trend. So look at the state of play, which way is the market going, and then look out for signs that that's going to change and the market's going to move in the opposite direction. So with regard to Bitcoin, I've got this line drawn in from last week. This was our buy trigger to show that the market was going to move higher on the week, because we had this upward trend, and then we had a correction. And I was like, okay, this is a good correction because we were expecting it. We expected a little bit of a pullback. Then we were waiting for another surge to take the market higher. So we did get that surge, but it's sort of market's going sideways here a bit, which I don't mind because we had this expectation that there'd be a move into the altcoins. But it's not bearish. It's just the market's taking a bit of a breather, which I think is absolutely fine given how bullish it's been, given that we are trading into new highs. Now, if we look at the chart of Ethereum, you'll see very differently. This looks even more bullish. So this has cleared its high and it's extending the way up. So, I was talking about the relationship between Ethereum and Bitcoin and this particular chart, which I was bullish looking for a breakout at this point here where I'm putting the cursor. And I was getting geared up for a break of a new high. And this just went completely against me, went wrong. And it started to look like, oh my goodness, I think I'm going to be wrong about this big time. And it's probably going to break this huge support level. And we're going to see a massive move into Bitcoin and not Ethereum. But actually, this is coming back again. So as it approaches this prior high, it becomes really interesting because it will mean that there will be outperformance by Ethereum more structurally, and we'll see another big trend like this one occurring. So there's some really interesting stuff going on in the majors, but basically they're both bullish. I'm expecting a move up to 72,000 is the next chart for Bitcoin, next target for Bitcoin. And then beyond that, around 81,000. But for next week, I'm going to be projecting some Fibonacci levels, which if you're not familiar with that, it's basically some levels that we as technical analysts like to look for resistance. When you go into new highs, there's no natural resistance. A natural resistance is where the market has stopped and come off. We can confirm that as a top. But when you're completely into new highs, you can't do that. There's no natural resistance there to call. So what we do is we look at relative trends. So we look at, say, for example, how big this trend might be, and then we put in a projection of sometimes 1-to-1, so we, an equivalent move, but sometimes we use the Fibonacci levels, which are 1 to 1.618. But I'll explain that more next week when I've got some targets for you. So that's basically.
I got a question for you, Paul.
Yeah, sure.
So if you've been following Plan B's predictions, because he almost completely nailed last month's prediction, but then he made that prediction like back in June.
Right. What was his? I don't follow anybody else. I listen to you, and Manu, and my own charts.
So Plan B he created the stock to flow ratio. So his background is in prediction, and so stock to flow is Plan B.
Oh, I've seen that. Yeah. Actually, I have seen.
He said it would be around. What did he say? 64,000. I think he was off by about $1,700.
Right.
For the end of this month, and
so he's basically right. He was basically right. I mean, if you're that close, yeah.
He's been so right on so many things, and gosh, I'll look up while we're looking at some other things what his predictions are for end of November and December. Twitter is a place to get them, but I'll pull those up while you're looking at other things.
Sure, I'll go over to the latest chart. So if you could just fire me up the next one that people want to look at, so I can get it up on.
Let's take a look at Solana. I want to look at. I covered the other day Solana versus Cardano, and my bet was that Solana was going to pull ahead, and actually in CoinMarketCap and CoinGecko, one of them has Solana's market cap ahead, the other one has Cardano ahead. Yeah. But let's take a look at the charts on Solana, because that's really interesting what's going on there.
Yeah, I really like Solana. I've been calling it up as well, and I think a couple of sessions ago you were talking about some interesting coins that I've got in the back of my mind that I've got to go back and check, because you were saying they were based on the Solana ecosystem and they were worth watching, and I keep thinking I should have bought them because I've got a feeling you called them right. But Solana itself, we were looking at this triangular constriction for a breakout, which we've got, and so the main call was for it to go into a new trend, which it has. So I am still bullish. So it's moving into a new high. It's kind of relatively simple, I should say. I mean, markets are never simple. They're never easy. But when you've got a new trend, as a technical analyst, you can't fight it. You've got to go with the new trend. And anything that's moved into a new high is something that you've got to go with, basically. Because what most people do is they look at it and they say that's too high, can't buy it here, etc., etc. And then it'll be like $50 or $100 higher, and they'll be saying the same thing. So when a market breaks into a new high, which it has done, we have to go with that. So I've been looking for at least 270 here as an interim target, and 320 definitely is possible given how strong it is. But yeah, that's still looking good, still looking like a strong chart. And we did say, if you remember, when they had that network attack, that the way the market bounced back from it was a good indication that there was strong underlying support for the market.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we called that forever ago. You could see it in the price, which is exactly why Paul looks at the price.
Yeah.
Because you can see how people are responding to things. So it tells you a little bit of the psychology of what's going on in people's minds, and that gives you an idea of how they might behave.
Exactly. And look, I don't get everything right. Nobody does. And I'll tell you when I get things wrong and etc. But, what I do is I look at price action, and it was a good distinction you made between price action and technical analysis right at the top of the show. Technical analysis is just based on, or indicators and things like indicators and moving averages that are based on price. So the reason why I look at just price is because that's what you guys trade. You trade the price. You decide to buy and sell. You might use an indicator or an oscillator, but if you think about that, that is all based on the price anyway. So either way, you're coming back to the price being the primary thing. Now, I just keep things simple by looking at the price action, and anyone who's looked at oscillators and moving averages out there, and I know there will be lots of people out there who do that, you know that it can get very confusing where one thing's saying buy, one thing's saying sell. And if you find that, then you might find it easier just to go back to, or more simple, to go back to the simple price action. So it's a bit like when you're riding a bike, you've got the stabilizers on, you feel like you can't take them off. You can still ride the bike with them, but taking them off and just looking at the price action forces you to really focus on what's going on. So, and again, if you're using oscillators and moving averages successfully, no need to change what you're doing. It's like, it's all down to your own preference. So, so that's Solana, which is, doing very well and should continue to do so. So what's the next one that we're looking at?
So I just did a video on the Solana ecosystem. Now, a little bit on fundamentals of Solana. They have a big Solana conference coming up, and in the next 2 weeks. So I think Solana is going to be on a lot of people's minds and the Solana ecosystem. And so, I did a little bit of looking at Serum. And I wanted to get your thoughts on Serum.
Okay.
That's Serum, which is the major DEX. Now, their market cap's at $1 billion.
Wow.
Which is kind of high for a smaller DEX, but not near as high as Uniswap. So there's plenty of room for them to run. And Serum is one that's like the major video game that's coming out that's going to use cryptocurrency called Star Atlas. They're going to integrate the Serum DEX right into the game. So the marketplace that you're using is actually the Serum DEX to make your trades, which will be fascinating to have that come together. But looking at the charts too, to me it looks like on the broader spectrum, looks like a W. But if you look a little bit closer since May, it looks like a cup and handle.
Yeah, I mean, this is a bit of a tricky one, because what we're looking for is a trend that's going to push it upwards from here. Now, I've drawn this line here, but I could have actually drawn this line a couple of weeks ago and it would have been here, and then
it would have failed.
And it would have failed, and here again. So I'm putting it here mainly because it has actually, it's kind of respected a couple of times. I don't like to ignore price action, so I'm just going to drop that down a bit. So I've only got really 2 main points to this trend line, and it's nearly confirmed, so nearly 3, which is okay, actually. That's not too bad, but I'm not that confident that this is going to be the line that will hold. What we really need to do is clear this area here over 9.36. So a break of 9.36, then we'll set up a move to the new high, and then we can start talking about a nice trend. Because otherwise, if we ignore everything else, it's still just playing in this range. So, and it hasn't broken out from it yet. So this is one where I'd have to put like one of those alerts to tell me that it's close to 9.36, and then I'd be watching the price action. Now, if it does a nice blue candle or green candle, whichever way you want to look at it, and it takes out that in one smooth hit, then I think that's where I get more interested in a break to the new high. But as you can see, out of the two, between Solana and this one, even though this might be similar technology or based on it, I have to say you guys are the experts on that. Solana is moving much, much more smoothly, and perhaps this will play catch up, and I want it to play catch up fairly soon. So I'd like to see that pushing that 9.36 by this time next week.
So if you draw a triangular constriction on this, kind of like a bull pennant, it seems to play out, and it seems like this wick up is breaking out of that pattern. Now, it's not enough to confirm the breakout, but that green wick at the end, what will happen is it'll often break out of this, and I would almost draw it not completely from the top. Yeah. I would draw it a little bit low, because sometimes it'll wick up at the top. I would draw it a little bit from behind. Yeah.
So are you talking about this whole area here being a pennant?
Yes.
Yeah. You see, that's people say that, but that's, for me, a pennant has to be much more compressed, and it's much shorter term. You see, this was actually building up into a bit more of a reversal pattern. Now, if I could change this to, why doesn't this change? I haven't got enough data for a weekly, but if we dropped it into a weekly, it might look more like a triangle. But a pennant is very short term. And when we see, I'll show you a pennant when we come to one, and you'll see what I mean. This for me has got a little bit too much volatility for a pennant. So a pennant goes bang straight up, then sideways for a bit, and then you blink and it's gone. But it doesn't mean it's not bullish. The triangular nature of it is what you're pointing out. That could be bullish. It's just that this area here is a little bit flat. You've got that support, you've got this support, so it's difficult to draw a triangle. If I go back to Solana, I'll show you why that's different. So if you look at Solana, we've got this lower support line very clear, this higher support line very clear. So we've got that compression and triangular constriction. But if we go to Serum, you don't have that lower line. You've just got a flat line, and flat lines like that can turn into reversals. So that's why I'm just a fraction more. Well, no, that's why I am more cautious on this, because it could still be a reversal because of this volatility. But I don't think it will. I think this is playing catch up, which is why I'm biased.
The probabilities aren't as high for a pump as what you like to see is really a summary of what you're saying. Let's look at the next one within the Solana ecosystem. Yeah. Let's look at Phantom. Not Phantom. Shoot, I forgot to put it on here. What's the other?
Should we look at Phantom anyway, or not?
We need to look at Phantom on today. And I will look up.
Okay.
Raydium was the other one I was looking at. Raydium is also a DEX on Solana.
Yeah.
But Phantom is interesting. This is more of a chart of where you like to see it.
Yeah, exactly. So something strange has happened to the data, because I used to have like day data and weekly data, but it seems just to be day and hours. Okay, so again, this is one that we talked about, I'm sure, and I think we talked about it breaking into a new high. But the trend is still up, and what I would do here is take a step back and look at the lows and see how this trend has been accelerating. So that is our first trend line. Then we can put another trend line in here, which is basically from here to here. And then we draw the next one, which is from here to here. Now you can see this next line, this one here is very close, and actually it's just broken it. But that's okay, because when the market goes up this fast, these lines are more liable to break. So it's not a trend ending signal when it breaks a line like this. It just means it's easing back. Then the next trend angle is actually quite far away, so it's down here. So we could see a fairly big pullback, and it's still be in an upward trend. But I wouldn't read too much into a short-term break like this, only that if you were looking to buy it right now, you probably wait maybe a day or two just to see if it holds this support, and then this next one here, before it continues its upward trend. So it's just saying it's not necessarily going to jump higher. It's just going to ease back a little bit, and the trend rate has come off. But overall, that's a bullish trend. It's on the way. It's on the go. It's on the move. So that's looking good.
Perfect. The one we want to look at now is Raydium. Raydium is within the Raydium with a Y. It's RAY.
Okay. Is it DU?
There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, you see.
Okay. Okay. Oh, this is interesting. So
this one is one that shows more data on CoinGecko than it does on here, but the challenge with CoinGecko is charting.
Yeah. Okay, I tell you what, let's have a look, because I am going to, now it's not letting me, it says, every time I try and move this, it starts to, right, CoinGecko. Right, every time I try to do that, the screen sharing thing kicked in. So it's Raydium, RAYDIUM.
There you go.
Right. Yeah. Spell it right.
You got it.
Okay. Now the reason why I'd like to see the data is because I want to know, is this coming out of a head and shoulders reversal? Like, is this a massive head and shoulders reversal? We're not seeing
See,
much more
I
data.
think the beginning here we're seeing the launch, right? So
Okay, okay,
that's what's at the far left of it. That's why we're not getting much
okay,
prior to March.
okay. So if I go back to my original chart, if you can
So
see
we do
that,
have almost all the data here.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
good.
no worries. Because what I was thinking is, if it come down here, then this is almost a perfect head and shoulders, inverse head and shoulders pattern, which means that if you were like inclined to punt the market, and what I mean by that is, in and out and a bit more speculative as opposed to buy and hold and
Mm-hmm.
do what Crypto Rain does, is wait until it's boring and then sell it when it's really, everybody's excited. So if you're more of a short-term trader, then you could be buying it now on the basis of, if it breaks this 16 level, it's really going to accelerate. So you're kind of buying one step ahead of when you really should, but it's moving up nicely. And what I like is the symmetry here. So you've got a really symmetrical setup. So if it has come from a much higher level down, then normally this would also be mirrored on a move up, but it wouldn't be confirmed properly until it breaks 16. But if you wanted to get in a bit early and put a stop loss, then a break below the sort of 8.97 level, or just about around there, would be an area where you could exit the position. Now, I'm not suggesting that you do that, because obviously we don't give any investment advice, and this is just how this particular chart looks at the moment from a technical point of view. But it looks like it should go up, which is a good thing. So
Yeah, it's looking strong that way. And notice that it looks kind of like the Serum one that we were looking at. And
yeah.
so I suspect that they're going to have a breakout as we go
Mm.
to Solana. Now, I can't tell you what's going to happen beyond the next couple of weeks because, like we saw with the Cardano conference, is that the price got exciting kind of front run the conference. And then usually the day of the conference, like everything kind of pulls back unless there's some major announcements that nobody expected, and then things will take off again. And so I would expect this might run as much as next half a week, maybe to a week. And then beyond that, it gets riskier. It's like the ice gets thinner.
Right.
Might run all the way 2 weeks. It could run beyond that. But there's going to be a lot of focus on the Solana ecosystem the next week to 2 weeks. Which, when there's a lot of focus, there's a lot of coverage. When there's a lot of coverage, people who are new to crypto buy in. And so what we're doing is front running what is likely going to happen because it'll get a lot of coverage and a lot of news. People then just FOMO in, and then if we've already made our positions, then I'm selling into those type of positions. So that's why I just made some trades into the Solana ecosystem a couple days ago. And if you were in my Telegram community, I called those. We are starting a Patreon, and Patreon, I will be sharing my trades on a regular basis, as well as certain levels of Patreon members. I'll be sharing with you my portfolio.
Brilliant. And so, just to give you a quick example of what I like to look for in a pennant or a flag, that flags and pennants are basically the same thing, pretty much the same thing. So this is a good example. So I thought I may as well show it to you because we're on it now. Market goes straight up, then pulls back in a very tight compression, and then boom, breaks out again. So that's what I like to see for a pennant or a flag. So if that was more triangular shape, then that would be perfect. So when it gets a little bit more volatile, it could be something else. So we just need to wait for it to settle down. Now it can go triangular, and it can turn into a cup and handle or something like that. And if this is something part of something even bigger, then we've got, a much larger reversal at stake. But usually pennants and flags are short term and they're over very quickly. So it's for intraday and short term traders. So
What's interesting is our price is getting close to. So this March, April, May, we had a really massive run in crypto, which didn't happen in the last 4 year cycle, 2017, but it did happen in 2013. And
yeah,
what's interesting to me is we're already almost back to those highs. In fact, we came back, tested those highs, got rejected. So the question is, are we ready to break through? Now, for those that are longer term holders, like I think the next week to 2 weeks is going to be a good run on this, along when the market goes fully parabolic. And I don't know on these kind of lower cap alts. When exactly that's going to happen, but it might come as soon as a month from now. It might come after January, where they go really parabolic.
Yeah.
And so just know, if you end up holding it too long, if you're trading this one yourself and you end up holding it too long and it retraces, well, then your options are sell and move into something else. I don't usually take that option myself. I'm too stubborn. I usually then just wait, especially if I have a good idea that something else might be coming later. And then I take that right up, rather than trying to sell and then get it lower. And then I usually just, but I used to do that a lot more when my portfolio was smaller. Now that I'm diversified across so many things, I don't worry about those little ones. So just some ideas on how this might play out, how you trade it. Really do your own research. But I think a pump is coming for Solana's ecosystem over the next 7 to 10 days. It's going to be in focus.
Great. And do we know any of the background fundamentals on this one, on Raydium?
Well, Raydium is a DEX. I actually use this DEX to trade Solana. So you have to get a Solana wallet, like Phantom is a big one. A lot of people use Phantom with PH. So you get the Phantom wallet, and you get your private keys and stuff, and then you fund your wallet, send some Solana into it. And so that's what I did, is I got a whole bunch of Solana and I got it on Binance, and then I sent it into my Raydium wallet. And so I've been able to trade on that.
Right.
So that's what I use.
Cool. Okay.
Let's jump right into these some audience suggestions from last week. Now, if you have some things you want us to review next week, if you would put them in the comments below, just please limit it to 2. But that's where we are pulling these suggestions from the video we did last week. Those that suggested some things they wanted reviewed, that's what we're doing. And so the first one of those was spores.
Oh, yeah, I remember.
And we've looked at these. You'll find a lot of my audience. We look at a lot of the ones that I've been interested in covering in videos.
So this was the Spores Network, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, so this one, I remember us talking about this, and it's, for me, still needed to do a bit more work before we got bullish on it. Well, certainly from a technical point of view. As you can see, the trend is still down. So for me, I wouldn't personally, or I say personally, technically, from a technical perspective, just reading what the chart is saying, I'd be sidelined. Now, where I would start to think maybe something's going on, it's got to break a trend line. It's got to do something to show me that it's that it wants to go up before I get excited about it. Now, again, I defer to the fundamentals, and when things get really cheap, people like Crypto Rain buy and others buy who've got far more foresight than I'll ever have, and they'll see things as being cheap. But for technical analysis, it's like, well, this is, I don't know whether this is going to go to 0 or not, so I don't want to buy it. So that's my kind of, like, if it can get over this line, then I'll start thinking about buying it. But it's broken this prior support as well, which is, for me, not a great sign, and it seems a relatively smooth trend. And on top of that, everything else seems to be doing all right. So why is this hanging around down here? Things can change very quickly in crypto, as we know. So something can be really out of favor, and then boom, it's suddenly, 2-3 days later, it's soaring. So I would never turn my back on anything, but at the moment, it doesn't look that great.
Yeah, now this is one I've covered in the past. Now, I covered it back before it had these massive gains to 10 cents. And I know a lot of my audience was able to load up on it at 2 cents when it was boring. And then it got really exciting. So what happens when it gets exciting? You take profits on it. Why? Because you don't know if this is going to happen. And that is what then happened. And so that's why you take profits. And then you're looking for buying it really cheap, or at least that's how I think about it. So it's starting to get really, really interesting again. Now, what happens in the life cycle of some new launch projects, even if they have amazing fundamentals of why they're probably going to survive in the long term. Now, the fundamentals on this that I like is that the team has amazing connections all through Asia in the gaming and crypto space, and also the art markets. So they're going to create essentially an Asian NFT marketplace, as well as some correlation with video games to run the marketplaces for some video games out there, and they have the connections to do it. And so what I love about this one is their connections. I think I'm going to double check this. I think for the audience might be cutting off just a bit of the price. It's showing some of the price, just not as much as I would like.
Okay. Is it
I've got it fixed. Yes. Perfect. And so I like to buy cheap. And so we haven't seen it bottom out. It's still heading in a direction. It just keeps getting cheaper and cheaper. And so this is when I start making small entries. When I make larger entries, when I see it kind of flatten out, is when I start making larger entries. And you don't always know. You can see that kind of flattened out a little bit back there at around 2 cents. It bounced off that, came up, and then it went and came through. Now, one of the reasons that these are kind of like catching a falling knife is every 30 days, a lot of new projects, they have token unlocks to their pre-sale investors. And so they'll get their tokens, and a lot of these pre-sale investors aren't necessarily hodlers. And so they'll sell, or they'll wait and they'll see it going down, and so they have some tokens and they'll sell. And often you see these patterns that then happen during months 2, 3, and 4. Because there's sell pressure, but there's not enough buy pressure to exceed it. Though at a certain point, when it comes back in the narrative, that sell pressure isn't extremely strong. It just is there, and yet there's not any news on Spores right now. There's nothing that's putting it front of mind, so the sell pressure is exceeding the buy pressure over time. That's why it keeps dipping. It keeps going down and down. And at some point, this flips around, and it usually flips around pretty strong because the sell pressure is kind of weak. And so when all of a sudden you have some strong buy pressure, all of a sudden the chart turns quite around. So I like this kind of chart. It's one that I look at, keep an eye on. Spores, I'm not ready to make more entries. I have some of this. I have about $10,000 worth of Spores that I'm just holding. And I'm looking for better entries, and it's getting really attractive. Great. So thank you to whoever suggested this one.
Great. So what's the next one?
DRF, and I think we've looked at this a week or two ago.
Okay. DRF, yeah. So
yeah, Drive.
Oh, it's Drive, yeah.
It is Drive, yeah.
I don't remember. Don't know. Maybe it's my memory failing me. I don't remember this one.
So this isn't showing the complete start of it. When it did come out, it was about, sometimes they come up really high, but it come down and it settled at around 4 cents.
Yeah.
And then it went from 4 cents all the way to about 20 cents. And none of this reflected in the chart. But 4 cents was really interesting. Went to 20 cents, which is a great exit strategy to get your initial out plus a bunch. And then it's going into this post-launch like death, and then this is exactly what we were looking at on the other one, where it's just going down, it's going down, it's going down, and then all of a sudden it's not.
Yeah, exactly. And it wakes up, and then off it goes. Well, this is interesting. I like this because this is at the beginning of a potential bigger breakout. Now, again, I'd like to see a bit more data, but it's woken up, it's come back, made some resistance. So its actual resistance come back again with a higher low. So now we can draw in a decent trend line, and we know that that's a good trend line because there's proper buying. Volume has gone up a lot. So this is again a positive sign. And so I don't mind it consolidating a bit and going sideways. If it can hang just near this high for a few days, I'd be really excited for a nice pop. So I like that. I like this chart. I think this is looking good. So and it looks like it's ready to do something interesting to the upside. So definitely I'd be watching that.
Yeah, thanks for the suggestion for us to review that one, because that was an audience suggestion.
Thank you for that.
Omi. Now, we look at Omi about every week, but it is one of my favorite. I love this project.
Yeah.
I love their VV app. I love their NFT collectibles. They're the highest quality NFTs, in my opinion, bar none, with the best licenses. They just got the Disney license was just confirmed, which is huge. The United States Postal Service, they did a deal with them making NFTs on stamps.
Really? When was that?
Just barely. They did their first stamp launch yesterday,
Oh,
and I
brilliant.
totally missed it. It was at noon Pacific time, and I'm on a different time zone, and I was out doing things, and I totally missed it. You could get these blind boxes for $6, and you didn't know what you were going to get. D Money, who's my producer, his wife got 2 of the ultra rares, which she sold one for $300 that she got for essentially $6.
Nice.
My guess is they'll kind of retrace for a little bit, but it'll be the first NFT of a stamp, especially one with an entity as big as the United States Postal Service. My guess is stamp collectors down the road will want the very first one, so it'll probably do really well. So that's the NFT side of it. This is their token side of it. And their token economics will come more into play. Some people say, oh, the token, what function does it have? It has some, and it's going to have more in the future. And so a lot of people have gotten very tired on Ecomi because they jumped in way back when it went parabolic, which this chart doesn't show the previous parabolic move. But if you look at this on CoinGecko, you're going to see a crazy chart. So take a look because I want you to see it, Paul, on CoinGecko. Sure. OMI.
Yeah.
Or that works too, Ecomi.
Ecomi, yeah.
There you go. Now, if you, go max and look at that chart.
Yeah, right. That's fantastic. That is fantastic. Yeah. But what's also fantastic is how it has reversed this major reversal. I remember us talking about it as well. This it's like a double bottom or a head and shoulders. It's not really a head and shoulders. It's more a double bottom. So we got a major low, a rally, another low, which is higher, and then it's pressing this resistance. It was beautiful resistance, which worked really well because it's broken, then come back as a little retest, and then off it's gone again. Now it has come back again. Like it's not completely clear. It still seems to be hitting a bit of selling and turbulence, but the trend is still up, and I like it. And as you say, it was a great shout to look at the bigger picture, because where can it go? Well, it can go all the way back up here. This trend looks like it wants to, retrace 100% and go right back to the top. Now, whether it will or not, I don't know for sure, but it's moving nicely and at a decent rate. So this level here, I would say, would be one of the most important stopping points, because let me just go back to that. I'll explain the reason why. Why won't it give me the max?
Or if you just show a year, just do a year, you'll still get it.
Okay.
A little bit tighter version of it.
Yeah. So this level here, there was a massive double top. So 1, 2. So if we were doing the show here, I'd be saying, look, there's a double top. It's time to sell. There's going to be a downward trend. But this is all turned down. But if it can get back to this level here, then that's where you'd see a bit of resistance. So 0.0089 is a heavy resistance area, and then if it clears that, then new highs. So that's a really interesting chart. I do like it.
Yeah, I love this on a fundamental level. There's some big things. So they also confirm they have Marvel licenses. They have some DC licenses for NFTs. They also have Disney, and what was the other big one that comes through Disney? I forget. It's owned by Disney. I forget. Disney's big in and of itself, but they own one of the other major brands that nobody has captured yet. Marvel's one of them, Disney, and I forget who the other one is. And they they gave some news on that. And so it just continues to be big news, but this is why patience is required, right? Some people come into the space, they see what happened on Shiba Inu, and they're like, shoot, I should have bought that. First, I never buy meme coins because you just don't know. They're really dependent on external factors that aren't foreseeable. So I stay the heck away from meme coins. But projects like this that deliver something of value where you can analyze how good the team is, that's what I like. And that just requires patience of waiting.
Yeah. Yes, indeed. So what's the next one?
Let's take a look at Meta Wars. Was a suggestion from one of our audience. I have no idea what this project is.
Could you say that again? Sorry, I didn't quite catch it.
Meta Wars.
Meta Wars. Okay.
Yes.
I wonder if that's some kind of.
If that even will come up. Oh, it does.
Yeah, we got it. So I wonder if that's some kind of Facebook type, virtual
Yeah, some
virtual
kind of.
land or something, virtual, reality
I'll,
thing or whatever it is,
I'll do
Second
a bit
Life.
of fundamental.
Hmm. Uh, Not much data to go on there. Other than, yeah, it's not a lot really. It's like the birth of it's like the birth of something. We don't really know what's going to happen next with only these few data points. I'm gonna have to keep watching it, and maybe, I don't know, maybe by next week we'll have a bit of fundamental information as well. I mean, it looks okay because it's going up, but it's, as I say, early days. It's not a lot we can say about it, unless there's more data on
Uh,
CoinGecko. Let's have a
so
look on
this one
MetaWars.
just barely launched, and it had a
Okay,
launch on Polylauncher, Redkite, GameFi. One
okay,
of the investors behind it is Mr. Beast, and so
I see.
that's probably why it's on some people's radars. Partnered with Network, which is cool. We've covered them a lot. Interesting. So,
Hmm.
probably not a piece of crap because, honestly, Mr. Beast, really smart business guy, but they also partner with Network, and so there's something going on with them. I don't know this one at a deeper level. I'm just looking at their website. There are so many different games coming in, and I think this is going to be the season where, like, some of these crypto games go absolutely crazy, even though they're really not going to have a playable product for 4 or 5 years on a lot of these, because they games take a long time to develop, and most games aren't successful, like 96% of them. And so a lot of these projects are going to fail in the longer term. Now, am I investing in a lot of them for the short term? I am, even if I don't suspect that they'll survive the long term. Why? Because I think a lot of people that are coming into this space, when the real FOMO hits, which when Bitcoin breaks 100 grand, you will see a lot of people coming into space. And first they will throw it at Bitcoin, and then they'll be like, "Oh, but Bitcoin's so expensive," and they'll be looking for other things to throw it in, and it's going to raise the tide, and they say all boats raise with the rising tide, and we're going to see that. So whether these games survive long term, I don't know. But they do have some backers, so there says something's going on with it.
Yeah, it's always interesting to hear about something this early. But as I say, technically, I can't. There's not much to go on, but I'm going to watch out for it. So thank you for that.
Cool. Let's go on to the next one. High Street. That is another one I don't know.
Okay, High Street. So a more of a kind of normal name, which is interesting. Let's have a look. So, okay, so this is interesting. What we've got is consolidation, sharp upward trend over the last few days. Again, not too much data, so it's going to be difficult to call. But this is a bullish triangle. So for me, I can see a flat top and a rising series of lows. I know it's only two, but I like that. So this is called an ascending triangle. Why is it called an ascending triangle? Because unlike a symmetrical triangle, the top is flat and the lows are rising. So if it can stay in this range for a day or two, then break out. I mean, it doesn't have to do that, but if it does, then you'll see how it looks more like a triangle. If it goes all the way to the apex, sometimes that can be a bad sign because it means it's held on for too long and it should have broken out, and then it sort of breaks the line and goes into sideways. Sometimes a bit of a correction, but what we're analysing right here, just for this price action, potentially this has got a bit more to go on the upside. So I'd like to see it go sideways for a bit and then pop, and we could see a very similar prior move next, if you see what I mean. So this gets repeated on the breakout. So what have we gone from $5 to 16? Blimey, that's a big move. So yeah,
Right.
it's already moved a lot. But just by eye, you could see it could easily get to like 30. So I mean, that's not a prediction. I'm just saying it's like, if you look at the way it's moved, if it breaks out again at the same sort of power, then it could get to those sorts of levels quickly. But you have to be very careful of things that haven't got much data as well.
Because this could break up And it could very well break down and forming a double top here and then go into that retracement pattern that we often see on these newer projects. So at this point, personally, I wouldn't make any decisions. Even though I'm trading a lot of these gaming ones that might not even survive, we'll see. Because if you think about a video game life cycle, it's a lot like a blockchain life cycle. Like Cardano came out and launched, I think, in 2015. It's really hit its stride in 2021. And so that's a long time, 6 years. And a lot of these solid metaverse projects are really going to hit their stride at least 2 to 3 to 5 years down the road. And this is another metaverse project. So a lot of these are going to go away, just like a lot of the third generation blockchains that launched in 2017 aren't around today. And they didn't survive the crypto market. But that doesn't mean they didn't pump tremendously during the last bull run. And so the way I'm playing this is I'm taking some of these rides up during this rising tide, and then I'm going to cash out, because then we'll see who's going to survive in the crypto winter, and because a lot of them will fade into nothing.
Right. So next one.
Let's jump over to a favorite of mine, and this is Wanchain. WAN.
Yeah, I remember this. Okay, so Wanchain. So this was one that we talked about, and we were waiting for it to break out, and it was sort of halfway between this high and low, and in the middle of the range. But now it's showing signs of life. So this is a short-term potential buy. So it means that it's trying to clear this range. So that's the first job: clear this range. Second job is get to this prior high and see how it trades. Now, whereas I think when we talked about it before, it perhaps looked a bit early, like it wasn't going to move. Now it looks like it's moving. So yeah, this one could be interesting this week for a move. Perhaps not as far as this high, but that's where I'm targeting it. That's where I'd like to see it get to. So that's a nice little move, because it's a lot of blue candles, and it's taking it out of this range, and it's keeping this run of this trend working as well. So yeah, it's shifting to the upside. So the momentum is shifting from sort of 50-50 to 55-45, and it's now going 60-40. And then if it has one big green candle, it'll be almost 70-30, which in market terms is a pretty good percentage in terms of where it can go next. So percentage odds. So 70-30 is a good, it's worth a trade to the upside. So I like that. Looks good.
I love this one for the long term. This one went all the way to $9 or so in the previous bull market. And so it's so far below where its previous highs were. In fact, this is showing it all the way to above $9, like $10. And so we're so far below that. The team and the tech that they have built, they've actually delivered on all the promises that they made way back then. They've actually over-delivered on them. What they haven't done a lot of is marketing. So I like those kind of gems where it's really just the marketing aspect that's missing. The tech delivery has been fantastic. At some point, usually some awareness comes, and they have if you follow the channel for a while, I've covered Wanswap and then Zookeeper, so they have their own DEX project, as well as Zookeeper, which has some NFTs. And Zookeeper just made this huge partnership with a gaming studio to further the gaming space on top of Wanchain. Now, Wanchain has cross-chain compatible bridges between all these different chains, and they're trustless bridges that they're creating. And so trustless is kind of like, I was thinking about trustless this last week as like Facebook is creating their metaverse. And one of the problems with Facebook's metaverse is they say, Facebook, when they said, hey, come use our system and you can communicate with your friends, we kind of didn't know trusted versus trustless. And Facebook is a trusted system. In other words, I'm trusting you with my data and you're not going to use it poorly, are you? And then we find out, yes, they are, because it's a system where you have to trust them to use it, not to use it poorly. In a trustless system, they essentially wouldn't have access to your data. So you don't have to trust that they're not going to misuse it because it's a trustless system. So in a trustless bridge, you don't have to trust that they're going to not use it poorly, that they're not going to steal your money, because the difference between a trustless and a trusted system. In a trusted system, usually a couple of people have access to the private keys, and you hope that, you know, the fear of criminal charges are strong enough that they won't like steal the money there. In a trustless system, the penalties people pay monetarily far exceed what they could get from stealing it, the way incentives are set up. And so trustless systems are much preferred. And Wanchain is the king of setting up trustless bridges across the different networks. I've also used them for forever, since like April, and their transaction costs are super cheap. I've been farming on WanSwap and Zookeeper for forever, and I'll be covering that again soon. And I covered a little bit their partnership with the gaming studio. It's worth a visit again soon, so look for that in the upcoming videos. It's really cool and exciting what they're doing. They have some of the coolest use cases of NFTs that they've created. All right, we're on to the next. Let's take a look at Umbrella. Now, Umbrella is one that, congratulations, a lot of audience members made a killing on this, because we covered it when it was like 25 cents. And like, that's what I like to do, is find these gems. So yes, it was on the sideways pattern. And the reason they dipped down so long here is they had a hack, and they took care of the things that made the hack. And like a bunch of people, I think it was just a partial hack. I don't think anyone ended up losing funds, or they got made whole, and they fixed whatever it was that created the problem. And so what I saw with Umbrella was solid team, great technology. They have a price oracle that is faster and cheaper than essentially Chainlink. And so it made perfect sense to me, and that was around the 23 or 24 cents mark when we covered it. I bought a whole bunch myself, and I shared with the audience that I'd bought a whole bunch, and just after that it broke up and we made a lot of money. I took all my initial out when it broke above 50 cents, so I was able to get my complete initial out to have a free ride bag. So
yeah, so it's this was an inverse head and shoulders. I do remember talking about it, and you know, this was what we like to see on a breakout of an inverse head and shoulders, which is telling us that this trend is over and a new trend is starting. So when you have a really nice sharp upward move, that's like firing the starting gun to say, yeah, this trend is going to be good and strong. Now, you can sometimes get a retest of this, what we call a neckline or the breakout point, and it didn't really come close to it. It tried to, but it basically, I've zoomed in now and it won't let me zoom out. I don't know how to. Yeah, it's all gone. It's this right. It's sort of zoomed in and out. Let me see if I can. Yeah, it's kind of got a bit.
It's not
straight.
giving you your cursor at all.
No, it's not. It's probably to do with the screen sharing or something. I've upset it by trying to zoom in. So yeah, I'll probably have to just request it again. Yeah, there we go.
There we go.
So yeah, it tried to get back and it didn't, which is a good sign because it meant there was heavy buying, and at the moment the trend is still going up. So that's a good thing. So it accelerated slightly, but it's this line that for me is it's the more natural trend angle, and I'm happy with it as long as it stays above this line. So that's more for a longer term trade, but it's trading nicely. So I still think it's got more to go on the upside. I like to look for symmetry as well, you know, so you don't see a straight line move up and you didn't see a straight line move down, but it's punctuated with these little corrections and then nice smooth moves to the upside, and that's what I'm expecting here. So there's no reason why it shouldn't go all the way back to 180 or 2. Now, of course, things can change and the price action can change, but at the moment, it's looking good.
Yeah, what I like about the current market is, my guess is if history plays out like it has every 4 years, we have this massive parabolic move. And we had a little of that this year, kind of like we did in 2013, but the massive move happened both in 2013, 2017, at the end of the year. And so my guess is that's ahead of us. Now, we could be off by a couple months, and it could end up happening January, February, or March. And so what I like is that if I'm wrong on things, it's not likely going to be that I'm wrong on that it's going to do well. It's just likely that it's going to take longer than I thought. And so I like those kind of situations where your potential reward is much higher than your potential downside risk. And so during this timing ahead of us for the next 4 months, I'm very bullish. So Umbrella, real quick, their market cap's at 83 million,
Wow.
which is still good. It's not as good as it was. It was like at 25 million back when we were buying, but 83, still like it.
Yeah. And what you were saying at the top of the show about a parabolic move at some point, either we'll see it this month, or not this month, sorry, this year, or sometime in 2022, depending. So we will work out the timing as we get closer. But there is the way Ethereum's trading, it making it look like it's going to happen this year. But if it doesn't and we see a correction, then yeah, like you say, it's good to be holding or buying good quality, you know, markets, so that if you do that, then they can ride out the correction, and when it does go parabolic, you know, it'll go with it. But yeah, so what's the next coin?
Let's take a look at ShopX.
ShopX. Ooh,
Now, this one I've covered a lot. This is PolkaDot ecosystem. Yep, this is
okay.
it.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
Splyt versus the dollar. Yes! Congratulations to my audience who stocked up on this.
Yeah,
I've been
well
talking
done.
about this for a long time, but
Yeah, that's so here we go. So this is where, you know, it's a big win for you, because, and not so much for me, because I'm always waiting for something like this before I get in, and sort of sitting on the sidelines while it's looking boring. So now it's woken up. It's doing its thing. There was good support here. I do remember talking about that maybe last week, maybe a couple of weeks ago, saying it'd be good to hold this support, and it seems to have done okay. Now, I personally wouldn't have bought it until it had at least cleared this 0.13 level. Now, I would have got an alert to say buy it, and it'd already have been at, you know, 0.23, so it'd be too late.
yeah.
But what I also know is that you do get another chance to get in most times, and we're getting that chance. So this is now woken up. This is now where I say, okay, something interesting is happening here. It's time to buy on a retracement. But don't hang around too long, because before we know it, it could be through this 0.30 level, and, you know, we're having to chase it even higher. So I'd be getting a little bit of this, and then adding actually on the break. So I don't mind buying a bit more as it breaks higher, because it's really confirming that the trend is good. Now, ideally, we'd see some sort of short-term consolidation, like a flag or a pennant or something like that. That's where I get really excited, because you get a very compressed price action, so you can buy it with a relatively short or small stop if you're wrong, if you decide to bail out on a short-term trade. That can work pretty well. But this is definitely exciting, and you know, if we can clear 0.30, great stuff. So yeah, definitely looking at these levels to buy.
Yes, no, sometimes we see from here that it'll pull back some just because people who are like asleep and say they've been looking for an exit point to jump out, because people get bored with their coins and they get scared and they think, oh, I've been holding this for so long, and they get impatient. And so their first chance to like exit,
Yeah.
they do, and they're like, oh, okay, I'm going to sell, and that's what wicks it down. And
Yeah.
sometimes it comes back to some pretty attractive prices before it then takes off. And so, you know, probably some good news came out. I don't know what causes. I know the DOT ecosystem is taking off. I know this is a decentralized version of Shopify. So whether they're going to make it long term or not, I don't know. But I think the narrative does really well during this parabolic move. And so my thought was, I want to take the ride on this. So I've been stocking up while it's cheap. And so I'm excited about this, but this isn't an exit point for me. I'm waiting for further before like I start taking profits on this, because I think the narrative will do well during this bull run, and then I will exit probably almost completely, if not completely, during the parabolic move at some point that happens anywhere between the next 2 months to the next 6 months. And then I'll be sitting on the sidelines for it to get cheap again and see if it's going to survive the crypto winter. Because you don't necessarily need a decentralized version of Shopify. I don't know that Shopify is like doing bad things with the data and everything. So really the reason why social media is making itself a target for decentralization is because the trusted system, we're finding out we can't trust them too much with our data, or they're censoring people for the political speech that goes against their ideology or whatever. And so it's just like, well, I don't know that we can trust you as much as we thought we could trust you, which creates an opening for a trustless system. We want a system where we don't have to trust the corporate overlords and whatever their political opinion is. We don't want to have to be in line with it. So,
Yeah, interesting. And I think what's a very important point to make is that I remember seeing some charts like this where you were saying, actually, no, you don't like the market. So given that a lot of the coins, if not maybe all of the coins, apart from the ones that you hadn't seen before, you've said, yeah, actually, although this is low, I really like the technology. There are some that you don't like, which differentiates it, which is why I think that's really interesting that you see some that are in this condition that you say, actually, I wouldn't touch it. But this wasn't one of them. This was one that you were saying, look, it's boring and quiet, but it's one that you're still looking to hold and buy some more. So
this was just going through post-launch blues, right?
Yeah.
So it launched right in that uptick of March and April, and it went absolutely crazy. You could have bought it if you bought it right away for about $1. It ended up going to like $5, and then our chart catches up here. And then you just see this long retracement where my guess is pre-sale investors were getting some of their tokens. And I was able to buy, I got in on this through Paid's Ignition. I was able to buy like $250 worth, which turned into $17,000 like that over like 4 days. And then it's just going through the post-launch blues where it takes a while to build something like that. So they're out of the news cycle. More tokens are getting released, and so there's this constant sell pressure with no buy pressure. And so it's just dropping, and starts to get really, really attractive.
Yeah.
So
Interesting. So
one more breakout one that I want to cover was Dows.
is it DOW?
WS, yeah, Shadows.
Oh, Shadows, that's it, yeah. Wow, okay. Again,
This is another one we've been buying while it was cheap, and I know a bunch of you loaded up at like 14 or 15 cents.
yeah, so this is still great, moving up. Very nice cup and handle. I think we talked about on the break of this high, 0.37. Trend is still good. It's at a nice rate. It spiked up a bit here and then come off again, but that's okay. There's good support at 0.40. But yeah, steady as she goes. That's really good. Well done if you bought it. I should really have bought some around here, but 0.9 as it was making this curve. That's when I like it. But I don't catch everything because I'm not doing this all day long. I look at so many other markets and have other things. But yeah, I wish I should. I think I've said it before. I should just concentrate all day on crypto because it's like amazing. But I guess that's what you guys are doing. So
it will be particularly amazing for the next 2 to 6 months. It's like, this is go time. I explained to my wife, and all of you who are married get it when you're like, baby, I know I'm doing my full-time job and I'm coming home and trading crypto, but just give me the next 5 or 6 months while I put in a lot of extra time. Then it will simmer down some. I'll still be involved, but just not as much. And how does that conversation go? Well, in my case, it only goes kind of well, because I'm trying to explain something very logical, and as human beings, we're emotional. Fair to say that women are a little bit more on the emotional side. And so she's like, yeah, but I love you, and what about the relationship? And let's spend time. I'm like, okay. So finding that balance is especially hard during go time, right? And we're definitely in go time of the bull market.
yeah. Okay, so the next one.
We got just one more cover,
Okay.
and that is Poco. Now, this is a recent launch. It's another gaming project.
Is it POCO yet? Is it Poco Land? Okay.
Yep.
Ooh.
We're not going to have tons of data.
Oh, yeah, but I like this. I think you could probably see why I like it, maybe. It's these triangles. So I like the fact that it's gone up, it's consolidating in a nice clear triangle. Now, if it nudges over this 0.32 level, then I think it's worth a buy. It's also looking like it's making a inverse head and shoulders pattern. So this trend is changing. If people buy it now, they're potentially buying it early. So there are certain triggers you look for, and the main trigger would be a break of 0.4, because that was the recent high. It was trying to break out from, to reverse this trend. And as you say, there's some people who've like been waiting and waiting, and as soon as you get this first move, they bail out, and then the market goes back to where it should be, i.e., the technology starts to kick in, or people hear about it, or whatever it might be that gets other people excited. But that this is what's developing. So it's not in a full flung trend as yet, but I think in the next couple of weeks it should be. So definitely keep an eye on this one. It's a good one to finish on.
Perfect.
Yeah. So, guys, look, thank you so much for giving your picks. And there's a few that I've got to go back and re-watch and make a note of, because, I definitely got to put some orders in, I think. But thanks again.
Thanks for joining us, Paul. We love your expertise and your view, and I love your personality, that you just kind of going with the mantra of the show, just real talk, right? And sharing with people what we see. We're not perfect. We're good at what we do. That doesn't mean we're always even right. We're just often right. And we try to lay it out to you, what we think, the pros and the cons, the good and the bad, just as we see it.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.
All right. Thanks for joining us, Paul. For the rest of you that are still with us, isn't Paul great? I really love that he takes time out of his busy schedule to join us and to take a look at all these with us. We don't have the same viewpoint of how we look at things, but I do believe that taking in other people's viewpoints helps you have a deeper, more thoughtful analysis on anything in life, whether it's politics, whether it's crypto, anything. So I love that he joins us and gives us his price analysis, because I think that couples well for not just helping me, because I learn a lot from our talks, but all of you in the audience. So if you're ready to level up your crypto game, join us through subscribing. We get into how to analyze projects in ways that turn my portfolio from thousands to millions. Keep in mind, this is something to commit to for a 5-year period. Now, we're in game time for the next few months, like I mentioned before, and then it will slow down, but don't go anywhere. Stick around. That might mean you're not putting as much time in. That's okay, but still stay in a couple times a week at least to keep abreast, so that you can load up when it's cheap, because that was one of the biggest things I made. I played the last bull market all wrong. I put all my chips on the table, which was smart, and they went from 15,000 to 165,000, which was great. I didn't take profits and put them on the sidelines. So I watched 165,000 in some high-risk alts turn into $3,000. And that was really frustrating, especially frustrating when you're married and you have to explain that to your wife. And then, especially when she told you to sell when it was like 130,000, that's even harder to bear. But I just kept putting additional money into during the bear market. I didn't go anywhere. I still stayed, and it was hard. I was working a day job back then, and I was paying attention to crypto. And I'm hoping a lot of you are in better positions, because if you play this market well and take profits, put them on the sideline, you're going to be so much farther ahead of where I was, because I didn't realize that my background in investment, that crypto wasn't different than that what goes up does come down. I knew it intuitively. I just thought I had longer, and then when it was dropping so much, I didn't have a good take profit strategy and got wrecked. But unlike most people who got wrecked, I didn't leave. I stuck around. And if you'll commit to 5 years here, I have to believe you're going to have amazing returns, because it can be frustrating if you're saying, I want to be a millionaire in the next month. Well, that's probably not going to work out unless you're at like 800,000 already or 500,000 already and you're putting all your chips on the table. But you can do pretty well this time ahead of us, and maybe even exceptionally well. It depends on what kind of choices you make. And then if you put it on the sidelines and make some really good buys when it gets really boring and it gets really cheap again, and then you're patient and wait through the next cycle. So if you make this 5-year commitment, I can't think of a better time in history that there's ever been, where in 5 years you can create so much wealth part-time. So thanks for joining us. It's time for our Rainmaker wrap for all of you. We appreciate you. This really just reinforces the principles of crypto investing. So thank you so much.
Came into the space chasing all of the gains, chasing the pumps and all of the hype trains. But like in life, be bad before you're good. Was taught to buy when it was boring like a rainmaker should. I buy when it's down, don't chase the boats that I miss. Cause I'll always make the time in mind. I sit the one out cause I'm patient like that. And I'll wait for the right time. I sell when it's high, I buy when it's low. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm just a rainmaker running the show. Calculated investments, I don't lead with my heart. The principles are simple, they're leaving a mark. Buy when it's boring, just gotta be smart. I sell when it's hype, like all the channels they pump it. That's when I was selling, go parabolic and dump it. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Makes the time fly by, years going so fast. The game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. The time is never better, the time like the present. This next 5 years is a gift and it's feeling like heaven. I'm committed to learn, to study and to know that nothing comes easy but when knowledge to gain show. Sticking at this wrong, cause soon will come a bear market. Learning and growing, and when it's slow will be the target. Naysayers come out, Bitcoin is dead. The massive decreases can get to your head. I'm sticking around, the time is better. I'm strong like that, I'll let the others be fretters. In 2 years time the bull will bring back the gains. That makes it worth the effort cause here comes the rain. So let's go rainmakers, let's make it all happen. Let go with the hate, let the haters be crapping. I'm here for 5 years, let's do this together. The time is right, the time could be better. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Makes the time fly by, years going so fast. This game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. Haters be hating, the time to slow down. Addressing what they say when I'm wearing my crown. They're chasing green candles like someone who was new. I got a vision that was bigger, helping me to push through. I'm still human and sometimes it is rough. And that's what makes me special, simply I stay tough. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck.